Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine and The Shark. Today is our 157th episode, and we're discussing the 2024 Fairly Oddparents, a New Wish episode, Rattleconda Racers. So, let's get things started.
Hazel moved to the city, feeling all alone. Then a whole life changed, but the pair quite strange. And in reality, they were her odd parents, fairly odd parents, fairly odd parents, fairly odd parents.
So, Fairly Oddparents certainly had a rough patch in most recent years with the Drake Bell movies, the later seasons of the original show, and Fairly Odder, which is the absolutely bizarre live-action sitcom, all of which were panned and none of which really did that well. So, for a while, this kind of seemed like a doomed franchise. However, this also meant that when the show was announced, there really wasn't that much hype around it because I think the general consensus was, oh no, not another Fairly Odd Parents. But to everyone's surprise, this really turned out good.
Yeah, it's such a wild concept. Hey, we've tried making this animated series live action for over a decade now. Crazy idea. Follow me here. This one's going to take a while to understand. What if we made it animated again?
Yeah, now the reason all of that happened, after the show ended, Nickelodeon did like a lot of things with the franchise, a lot of spin-offs, movies. They tried live action, they tried like mini Flash series and all of that. The reason is quite interesting. I don't know exactly how it works, but when the show ended, Butch Hartman took the rights of the show, but only the show itself. The characters and the concept was still in Nickelodeon's hands, so Nickelodeon can do basically anything they want with the series. Games, other shows, other spin-offs. The one thing they can do with the characters and any of that is continue the main series. So that's why they pretty much started the whole, spin-off after weird thing after another weird thing.
But at least in this case, it seems to have worked because this is probably the best Fairly Oddparents thing we have gotten in a very, very long time. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
And to think we had to sit through forward-facing Adobe Flash Mr. Crocker and non-bucked-toothed Timmy Turner. This was worth it.
A New Wish actually follows Cosmo and Wanda some 20 plus years later from the original show as they get Hazel, who is a new godchild, and grant her wishes. Now, the thing that's interesting about this show is that, number one, it's a continuation of a show that actually works, which is very rare. And number two, it's done in kind of a CGI quasi 2D art style, kind of like, I guess, the Spider-Verse movies would be the best comparison to it. And this actually looks really, really good.
Yeah, it very much does. Unlike Sponge on the Run, where that one also did a similar thing with this, and yet the story kind of suffered for it. This one here actually works a lot better. The style of Butch Hartman works a lot better here than something like, say, SpongeBob.
One thing I do like about this show, too, is how it relies on its own thing. It's not just callback after callback after callback, like, oh, remember Vicky? Remember Mr. Crocker? Remember Timmy's dad? They don't do that. I like it. I like it a lot that they actually decided to sit down and say, hey, maybe we should make this new Fairly Oddparents show its own thing rather than trying to repeat what was popular 20 years ago. The show itself begins with the Netflix logo, which actually felt really weird to see that before a Nickelodeon property. The show itself begins with the theme song, which Angron gave kind of a preview of earlier. It talks about how Hazel moved to a big city of Dimadelphia, no longer Dimsdale, showing how much things have changed, and felt alone until she got her Fairly Odd Parents, who of course are Cosmo and Wanda. From here, the theme becomes kind of a remix of the original one, and it is a lot shorter than that, which I don't get because it's on Netflix. There's no commercials. Why would they need to shorten it down? It's, I guess, because of a Netflix interest or something like that. But we then get the title card of the episode, which is done in the style of the original show. It showcases a Western setting with a snake in the middle of the town, and it rises up. The episode itself begins in Hazel's apartment as her older brother Anthony, voiced by AJ Beckles, is showing his parents slideshows of what he's doing at university, including him joining the Iguana Society. I do like this. This is a clever touch. The slideshow pictures are done in the style of the original show.
It does its own thing, mainly a continuation of the original, and you can see that in a few other things, like an older Mr. Crocker and Timmy and his friends, like having actual jobs. But I also like when they harken back to Butch's original 2D style, and it honestly works for a series such as this.
Their father says that he's glad that he's following in his footsteps as they both do a lizard cry and laugh. Hazel, voiced by Ashley Crystal Hairston, is not interested at this, then asks who that girl is next to Anthony. He says that it's his best friend Deja, as he then shows a slide of them falling into a fountain and laughing. Hazel gets up and says that she thought she was Anthony's best friend. Anthony then begins to backtrack, saying that Deja is his best friend at college. Hazel's mom, meanwhile, tells him to tell them more about Deja, as Anthony says that they're best friends, they have the same sense of humor, and how he feels like he's himself when he's with her. He then goes on to say that he made up a game together before Hazel interrupts him, saying that it's not as cool as the game they made together. She then runs off screen and comes back with a board game. Anthony, seeing the board game, says that it's a blast from the past, as they both say the title, Rattleconda Racers, and do a fist bump, leading into them wiggling their fingers and hissing, which Rattleconda Racers does look really cool, but can it really be as cool as Patrick the game?
Yeah, I go with welcome, gamers. But yeah, honestly, this moment and this concept is kind of relatable to me because actually, me and my sister will actually make board games together. It was basically just simple like, oh, snakes and ladders that, oh, one space brings you to this space and this other space brings you back to the start. But hey, seems that it wasn't just a thing that me and my sister did. Apparently, it's something that many siblings did.
I like just the whole dynamic is interesting, giving her siblings, giving her a different dynamic with her parents. I like that. They really did make Hazel such a well fleshed out character. She's not just a clone of Timmy or anything like that. She has her own foibles, she has her own desires, and I like that. I really, really do.
Yeah.
Hazel then asks Anthony to play, as Anthony says that he wants to show his photos off first, and then says they can play together later. She sadly says okay and goes to her room, as Anthony tries to apologize before she slams the door shut.
I see your Rattlesnake Racers and Patrick the Game and raise you a Dodger Dare. Roll the dice, pick a card. This is definitely your typical kid behavior for someone like Hazel. Like, there is a startling amount of realism in this show. Her going off and being impatient, so eager to spend time with her brother, it definitely works.
What I will say is that it kind of looks like they listened to all the criticism Timmy had at the end of the series, that he was extremely selfish, he was extremely petty, he will make wishes over the most minimal thing that went wrong, like, oh, I dropped my ice cream, I'm gonna wish the whole town is ice cream. Who cares if this causes disaster and all of that? Hazel, no. They said, oh, let's actually make Hazel relatable, and if she's selfish, she's like understandably selfish. No, I'm going to destroy your life because you will look at me wrong, selfish.
Hazel then begins setting up the board game as Cosmo and Wanda appear. Cosmo asks what she's doing as he then gets on a game piece and begins riding it around. Hazel explains that she and Anthony made this board game when they were younger. Wanda asks if she's going to play with him, as Hazel says that he said that he would, but that was 2 whole minutes ago. Then worries about how he doesn't want to play with her anymore, which feels like such a really interesting and unique conflict. Wanda says that's a pretty big leap, as Cosmo says, not as big as this one, and then does a stunt jump in a really cute moment. Hazel then explains that they played Rattleconda Racers all the time when they were younger, and she wishes that he was into it as much now. Cosmo and Wanda then, of course, raise their wands and make the wish, which there's a really clever touch right here. The wish bubble says 235-1, which actually was the screen ratio for westerns like the Dollars trilogy. And here on in, the episode is done in a widescreen format, which is really creative. It's something that I don't think they'd be able to get away with in the original show because of TV size. I like they play around with the aspect ratio. It's something simple, but it's so cute. Actually, I have to agree.
Yeah, the running theme throughout this entire series is doing more with less.
We then cut to a desert landscape as Hazel and Anthony ride up on their bikes. Wanda notes that Hazel wished for them to be into the game, so they decide to literally bring them into the game. Wow, Cosmo and Wanda have learned absolutely nothing since that time they granted Timmy's wish to be inside the video game.
That's exactly what I thought.
They're still 2 halves of a whole idiot.
I was about to say, it's Cosmo and Wanda. Would they really be them if they have learned nothing?
Yep.
Very true. Very true. Wanda then says that they'll be the townsfolk that'll help out throughout the board game and asks Cosmo if he knows his lines. Cosmo then pulls out a script and woodenly reads, "Howdy, I'm Cosmo the Kid," several times as Wanda looks at him unamused. We're going to get to more of this in a little bit, but man, just the dynamic they did with Cosmo and Wanda here feels like such a breath of fresh air. It is amazing.
both back and forth between one being smart and the other just being an absolute adorable dumbass. One moment, Wanda will be belittling Cosmo for his slip-ups, but then she'll do something where Cosmo has to pick up her particular slack. These two were 100% made for each other.
Hazel notes how cool this is, then goes to see Anthony. He is already riding off, asking her to Rattleconda race with him. He drives in circles in the sand as Hazel yells at him that they have to stay on the track. Anthony asks why, wanting to explore the area, as Hazel pouts that she wants to play the game because that's how they used to do it when they were kids. He then drives back to her and admits that he forgot how to play. Hazel explains that they are the Rattleconda Racers and they have to make their way to the finish line. She then says how they can only move forward with carts and they can't leave the trail no matter what, and how they can't have any more willy-nilly wheelies. Anthony then says how, "Aw, but willy-nilly wheelies are fun," and I do have to agree, Wheelie is a lot of fun. He is a great partner on Kirby Superstar.
Imagine if Kirby was there on Wheelie Rider showing them how to do wheelies in the desert.
It's kind of fun how you can kind of see other type of sibling dynamic when it comes to game. Like, oh, one is the one that plays Breath of the Wild and wants to go straight for Ganondorf, and the other one is the one that wants to do all the side quests for fun. So they both want to play, but each one wants to play in its own way.
The first card then appears as it reads, "Round up the cactus critters." Here a bunch of cactus animal appears and they look exactly like Cactar from Final Fantasy. Eerily similar with the eyes and with the mouth expressions they do. This is a way to do a reference right. This isn't like in Wee Baby Bears where the male dragon somehow randomly has Cloud's sword. This is a reference that it's neat if you get it, but even if you don't get it, these are really cute designs regardless.
Yeah. Also, I noticed a bit of creeper elements in there. They don't blow up like the creepers, Lord forbid. Yeah, there's cactar and also a bit of creeper elements as well.
Cosmo and Wanda then appear on the side of a building as Cosmo woodenly says, "Howdy, I'm Cosmo the Kid." This reminds me a lot of the Simpsons episode with the Lisa Simpson girl cowboy. "Howdy, I'm Lisa Simpson."
Yeah.
On the other hand, Wanda really gets into character as she starts to overact, saying about how the cactus critters managed to trap them up there and how they may now succumb to desert fever, which took the lives of the rest of their family. I love this. I love it they gave her such a melodramatic line. It's a really fun dynamic that Cosmo is so stilted and wooden, and yet Wanda gets so into character. And this is a running gag throughout the episode, and the more they do it, the funnier it gets. And I'm not saying that sarcastically, I mean that sincerely. It is really funny. I feel like the original Fairly Oddparents would have had Wanda be the nag or the stick in the mud or the boring one. She would have been like, "Oh, you better get out of this game right away." But no, they actually gave her a really fun bit of character dynamic here. And I like that. I really do. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, she definitely feels like Rarity in that regard, or like one of those LARPers who get so dedicated and are so in-depth about their character that it just feels so hilarious when the rest of the party is like, "While we're young, please," and that's pretty much Cosmo. Like I said before, they go back and forth many times on one trying to rein in the other, and in this case, it's Cosmo being the one reining in Wanda, when normally it's Wanda doing the inverse. And it's honestly pretty hilarious every time it happens.
Yeah, you were saying about how Wanda would be like the nag or the stick in the mud. That is later seasons Wanda. I'm going to be generous and say post-Channel Chasers. Before that, she would get in on the goofy, stupid shit. And that's one thing I'm really glad that they brought back for this. They reverted Wanda back to how she was, rather than the flanderized version that she became as the show went on.
Hazel, meanwhile, gets annoyed at all of Wanda's melodramatics and tells her to hurry it up. Wanda, annoyed at being cut off, just says, "Round up the cactus critters so we can get down from here in a quick way." Again, the facial expressions too really work out well, especially for this animation style. The cactus critters then all wander off as Hazel and Anthony go off in two different directions. Anthony manages to stop some cactus critters while Hazel gets some others. Two of them do donuts in the sands in order to get the critters into their pen as Cosmo closes it, thanking them. Wanda also thanks them, then goes into another melodramatic monologue about how she can finally pay her debt to the evil Deborah Diamondback as she keeps going more and more into her character again. Hazel cuts her off as Wanda says, You're no fun, you know that? I love that. This is the best Cosmo and Wanda have been in years because it just feels so natural.
Yeah, this feels like those pretty rare moments where the roles are reversed. And it's Cosmo and the others having to rein in Wanda because Cosmo is doing a good job of keeping in character in the only way he knows how to. And yet Wanda decides to go full on Broadway.
Cosmo says that they can advance 12 squares as Hazel and Anthony cheer at this. They then drive off before reaching another card that says, "Jump at the canyon." Cosmo and Wanda then appear again as Wanda warns them that all of those that have tried to cross the canyon have perished under mysterious circumstances. She darts her eyes around nervously.
Yep, just ask Homer how it went when he tried.
At least they have a much easier time than he did because thankfully there were no ambulances at this time to
Yep.
Anthony is confused at all this as Cosmo simply asks them to cross. Hazel says, "Can I just watch?" as Cosmo and Wanda then appear on their bikes. Hazel and Anthony then easily leap their way across the canyon as they say how we eat canyons like you for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert. They then get another card which reads, "Race the Rattleconda to the finish line." Here we get the reason we're discussing this episode because the Rattleconda then appears behind them as she hisses. Anthony yells in fear as she begins speaking, saying that she is Rhonda the Rattleconda and how nobody jumps her canyon for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or dessert, and hisses at them. This is the first time on the podcast we are discussing a character who is not a dragon, nor a dinosaur, nor a real reptilian scalie. We're talking about a full-on snake here.
This is the first time you will be hearing this, but it will not be the last, I guarantee you. I love the sexy slither of a lady snake. Oh, baby.
Hey, maybe we can cover Whacking Day one of these days.
This is definitely one of those interesting cases of a rattlesnake being covered on the podcast. Rattlesnakes are indigenous to Texas and the South. Covering one on here is definitely your boy's level of catharsis, but also Rhonda as a character is definitely an interesting one because she's pretty territorial, but she falls into some fairly predictable snake stereotypes.
Her appearance is that of having orange scales with a yellow underbelly, as well as having a green mohawk and a punk choker with a piercing in her nose. Her voice actress is none other than Deborah Wilson, who also voiced Ramara for Mao Mao, and she does a really great job in the role. Like, you would not be able to tell it is her, but she is a great voice actress in general. Oh, go ahead, Shark.
The funny thing about her design, because, you know, being like a serpentine, the mohawk and the ring on her nose, she reminds me of kind of Lee from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Another character we'll get to in the future.
Yeah, imagine if like that was on King Oranga Snake's team. She would last a little longer than some of his other minions. She would definitely be quite the force to be reckoned with.
Deborah Wilson gives Rhonda a slight southern accent, and because she's a snake, she hisses all of her S's, which is a lot of fun. Rhonda then begins chasing them as Hazel wishes they were out of the game, but Cosmo says that's cheating, and we know who's listening in on this. Cheating! Oh, ho, ho, ho. Cheating! I'm cheating!
Somebody cheated! I can't lose!
And using Cosmo and Wanda will count as hacks!
Wanda then says that only no good coyote scoundrels cheat, and how in the Old West, your word is your law and the law can't be broken, and goes on like that, before Hazel cuts her off, telling Wanda now isn't the time for that. Cosmo then says that the only way out of the game is them to cross the finish line, and this is a way better Jumanji sequel than any of the movies starring The Rock. Anthony notes that the only way they can escape Rhonda is by getting off the trail, but Hazel says that they can't until the cards say so. They then get another card, telling them to dodge tumbleweeds as they are then pelted by them. Another card then appears, telling them to watch out for the cactus critters as they go on the track. They drive past the critters as Rhonda runs them over, and in another cute touch, the next time we see Hazel, Anthony, Cosmo, and Wanda, they are covered in cacti spikes, which is just a cute blink and you miss it effect. They didn't have to do it, but I'm glad that they... Anthony then tells Hazel they have to get off the track, but Hazel says that they can't. She then gets a card saying that there's quicksand, as her bike then begins sinking. Cosmo tells her not to panic, as Wanda says that her character would panic in this situation, then starts screaming about how the harsh desert frontier has managed to claim her life. When I saw this for the first time, I was floored at just how funny Wanda was here. They really had a lot of fun with her.
Yeah, her voice actress must have had a lot of fun too, because this is some Oscar-worthy performing.
Rhonda then appears over them, gloating about how her fast food has slowed down as Hazel yells for Anthony to help her, drives back to her, picking her off of the bike as they go off the trail. Cosmo and Wanda then ask if Rhonda is going to eat them, as she says that they'll be the perfect snack, then lunges at them, with the screen then being taken up by her mouth. We then cut to Hazel and Anthony driving off the trail, as Hazel says they have to go back for Cosmo and Wanda. Anthony is confused as to why she wants to help those NPCs, as Hazel says that they can't cross the finish line without them. Anthony is skeptical about this, but agrees, then says that they don't have their bikes, and if Rhonda sees them, she'll eat them. Hazel then mentions that Anthony ran over all of the cars because he jumped over them. Anthony then argues back that he saved her, then asks her why she has to be so rigid about the game. Hazel says that she wanted to play the game exactly like how they did when they were younger, as Anthony asks why. And here we get a really good character moment between them, because Hazel says how everything is so different since he left for college and begins crying, as Anthony says how everything is different for him too, saying that he has a roommate who snores, he has to eat at a cafeteria, and he can't even figure out a way to tell his girlfriend that he loves her. I like this. I like they gave them such an interesting character dynamic like that. You really feel that they're siblings who love each other.
Yep, and since Hazel is someone that has a brother, and the conflict right now is sibling and how they've been apart, how she feels. Basically, this is something you will have never seen with Timmy.
Just the fact they have siblings makes it such an interesting new dynamic.
Yeah, Timmy, for the most part, was just a kid who just utilized wishes to get through in life. The moment that was over, for the most part, yeah, he kind of ultimately lost interest, and including She Who Shall Not Be Named didn't help. This, however, does, and it's very much relatable to those who have siblings who have done this kind of thing before.
Hazel says that she didn't know that, as Anthony says that she would if she paid attention to him, noting that she didn't even bother to watch his slideshow. The two of them then make up and hug as night falls. They then see what appears to be Rhonda before it tips over, and it turns out to not be Rhonda, but her shed skin, as Hazel touches it and is creeped out by that. She then gets an idea on how to save Cosmo and Wanda as we cut to them wearing the shed skin as a costume. Anthony notes how the game seems so much more intense compared to when they played when they were kids, as they sneak over to a ledge. Rhonda is there, roasting Cosmo and Wanda over a fire as Cosmo tries to blow out the flames. The pair then lift up the snake skin as Hazel makes it talk, and this is a good disguise and all, but an even better one would have been SpongeBob and Patrick's giant albino eel.
That's exactly what I thought as well.
Yeah, or just have Lee be there. Also, I love the fact that they improvise and utilize her shed skin as a rival snake to Rhonda. What happens next is actually pretty accurate to the actual rattlesnakes in the wild.
They then challenge Rhonda to a snake off, and if they win, they get Cosmo and Wanda. Rhonda asks who is she, as Hazel nervously thinks of Sherry the snake, and just the stammering she does is a really fun bit there. Oh, go ahead, Shark.
Coming back to the joke you made, like, yeah, when I watched this scene, I also thought that, nah, SpongeBob and Patrick's snake costume was better.
Rhonda then agrees to battle Sherry the snake as she prepares herself for the fight, while of course the snakeskin just sits there. Hazel and Anthony manage to rescue Cosmo and Wanda, while Rhonda easily defeats Sherry, tying her in a knot and telling her that my food is my food, before noting that it's also getting away. We then cut to Hazel and Anthony riding off as Wanda, still in character by the way, says that she always knew that they'd come back for her. Rhonda then blocks the finish line, saying that it's game over for them, as Hazel and Anthony then step in front of her. Anthony then asks Hazel if she's thinking what he's thinking, as she says that it's time to turn this Rattleconda into a Rattleconda race course. They then turn their headlights on, managing to blind her as they then manage to race onto her body. She then pursues them, snapping at the two until they go onto her underside, which, man, isn't this just that Mario Kart course?
Yep.
Mario Kart wishes it had this level of intensity. I mean, in that one you get to ride on a dinosaur, but imagine if you could ride on a giant snake.
That would also be cool. We then cut to them riding through Wanda's body like a race course, complete with loops as he continues to chase them around. The pair then just barely manage to make it to the finish line, which for some reason is done in kind of a comic book style. This is the only part of the episode that I didn't get what it was for. I guess to make it more cinematic. It does look cool. It doesn't really fit in the board game motif, but small potatoes there.
Hey, they're riding Rhonda. And I know the stereotype our podcast has, I don't mean like that.
They then just barely manage to cross the finish line as the wish bubble then appears, and in another fun touch, it now says 16:9, which is the regular aspect ratio of the show as it returns to it. Just playing with the format like that is really something cute. They then return home as Anthony talks about how it seems like he got sucked into the game and how it just felt so real. Anthony then asks Hazel if she wants to play again, as she says that she wants to see his slideshow some more. Anthony then says that they have 64 slides left, and no, that does not mean that they're going to do the Mario 64 penguin slide, as awesome as that would have been.
It's either that or the 64 slices of cheese.
The episode then ends with Cosmo and Wanda riding off on the game piece in their Western outfits to see Iris out. I was really pleasantly surprised with this episode and the show as a whole. I think what it was, because Fairly Oddparents had been bad longer than it had been good, it was a really big stretch to see if it would work, but no, this actually is a really well-made, well-put-together show. If there was to be a continuation, this is the perfect version of it.
It also helps that one of the first episodes I saw actually got me pretty interested in this show. It was one where Cosmo and Wanda were failing in the eyes of Major as being proper Fairly Godparents to Hazel. And yet, the replacement, Cookie, decides that her way is good by rewarding the person for a wish well done, a cookie, because that's what she believes they want. But Hazel, in turn, corrects her by saying that if she was a really good fairy, compared to Cosmo and Wanda, she would know exactly what she wanted. That is the level of intelligence that this show brings to the table, and it is a massive step up from the original show in many, many good ways.
The series finale would end up bringing back Cosmo and Wanda's son, Poof, now an adult named Perry, and the fact that they did that, and they actually made, Poof, who was just like the generic, oh, it's the cute little baby character, and they gave him his own personality, they gave him his own characterization, is really, really a great touch. They didn't go too hard on the callbacks, which really works out. You think it'd be, oh, Mr. Crocker is going to come back and he's going to destroy the world. No, they go in a different direction, and again, I like that. Unfortunately, Fairly Oddparents and New Wish did very well critically wise, but in terms of popularity too, it seemed popular on the internet and amongst its target audience, and yet it so far did not get a second season, and with everything going on with Paramount now, it's kind of up in the air whether it will or not, so that's going to be something else.
Only time will tell.
This is sort of a perfect combination of things. You have Nickelodeon, a network notorious for hating its own shows if they aren't SpongeBob, and Netflix, a service very well known for going, something is popular and well-liked, let's cancel it after one season.
You're right, it really seemed like the perfect storm of that, because again, this felt like if they had canceled the show with Channel Chasers and then they brought this back in 2012, 2013, I could see it easily being just as popular as the original show was. With that being said, we are now getting to the question of the week, which is, what is your favorite Fairly Oddparents episode? And hard mode, no Channel Chasers, because I know everybody will probably answer that because that is a really, really good episode. I'm going to go first, and mine is one that really is a lot of fun, and it's one that's always kind of stuck with me since then. It's an episode called A Mile in My Shoes. It's one where Timmy becomes a fairy, and Cosmo and Wanda try to act like regular children. And this episode, it might not be the best in terms of story, but in terms of comedy, it is really, really so good, because it starts out with Cosmo and Wanda having to go back to Fairy World to renew their licenses. Timmy goes to his dad thinking that he could drive him to school. And what happens is Timmy goes to his dad, you turned the car into a giant robot? The Tinklebergs have a giant robot. I'm just evening the score.
Nice.
Everything with that. Timmy getting drenched in the rain and covered in volleyball is funny. And Cosmo and Wanda with Jorgen von Strangle have a terrible time too. They get so fed up with each other they decide to change lives, which really funny stuff, because right off the bat, Timmy tries to turn into a fish, and he accidentally doesn't give himself gills, causing him to nearly drown. He then manages to turn himself into literally every single other kind of sea creature that night, before finally getting to it and falling asleep. Cosmo then asks for a puppy, and he turns himself into a dog with a fish body, and then he goes back in it because he forgot to give himself lungs. And there's really a lot of funny moments in this episode. There's a great moment where Cosmo, disguised as Timmy, is hiding under his bed and is nervous. Timmy's parents give him a thermometer, and Timmy's mom says, "He's warm and he's green." And Timmy's father, "He's warm and he's green? That's the symptoms of being steamed broccoli." Really great moments there. And there really is a lot of funny stuff too, with Timmy trying to go to Fairy World, but going to Dairy World, Hairy World, and Scary World. And it's just an episode, I know I'm probably gushing about it a little too much, but it really is a funny one. It might not be the best episode in terms of like plot or in terms of doing anything new or reinventing the wheel, but it's a really, really funny one regardless, because it takes just simple premise and it really does work out for the best. That's not even my choice. It's going to be the episode A Mile in My Shoes. Angron, what would your pick be?
There aren't too many episodes of Fairly Oddparents that There is one where that introduces the goat character Chompy that Timmy frees and has a nightmare because of the guilt. There's also the one where he and the Crimson Chin battle the Nega Chin. It's probably the one where Nega Chin goes IRL and beats the show, Butch Hartman. But I think my pick is probably going to be Channel Chasers, because that's the one where they go through so many different show parodies, like Strawberry Shortcake, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which are all cows, which, yeah, speaks to me on a personal level. They even do Dragon Ball, and throughout the entirety of that, the whole premise is Timmy having to deal with the fact that eventually he's going to grow up and he's going to lose Cosmo and Wanda, two of the greatest things to happen to him in his life, and pretty much his crutch through every single terrible thing in life. Like, sure, he's had to deal with the consequences of his wishes because of that, but at that point, it became regular for him. Now that's gone, he's doing his own thing, and it all feels like he's having to stumble through life, just barely getting by. In this episode in particular, we get a glimpse of what his life is like after Cosmo and Wanda, and him coming to grips with that eventually. But for the time he has left, he spends every moment of it. Also, there's this thing with future Timmy being disguised as a hooded warrior, and it's honestly pretty hilarious. In any case, that's going to be my pick, Channel Chasers.
Okay, and what is your favorite non-Channel Chasers episode, let's say?
It's probably going to be the one with the Nega Chin and Timmy and Crimson Chin teaming up to beat up him before he beats up Butch Hartman.
Okay, that's a good one. Let's see, Matt, what would your pick be?
Answer your question with another question. What makes me happy? Fills me up with glee. Those bones in my jaw that don't have a flaw. Woo! My shy teeth and me.
Nice.
This is such a good episode, not only because it's a really great song, really helps that to voice Chip Skylark, they got Chris Kirkpatrick, one of the people from NSYNC, but it was just such a fun episode in general. You have Gilbert Gottfried as Dr. Bender, great casting right there. It's just a fun, wacky action thriller spy sort of parody episode, and the song at the end, Shiny Teeth, is such a good song. Like, it's amazingly a good song. I'm amazed you don't hear this on like the radio or something, because it's genuinely just a good bop. There's nothing wrong with this episode, and it's just fun the whole way through. This is one of those rare episodes where there is not a single problem with it, and it has aged like fine wine.
Gilbert is really a great voice get right there for him and his son, and he appeared previously, but this is his best moment. Yeah, the part with the Tooth Fairy, that was great. And Chris Kirkpatrick is really, really a great thing in the Shiny Teeth song. It's probably one of the best songs in the actual show. I first heard that song not from the show, but from an Animutation from like 2003, which was called, I believe, Johan Vasquez versus Conan O'Brien versus Colin Mockery versus the Monorail. And yeah, if you know Animutation, it got weird, but it's a lot of fun. I gotta see if I can dig it up because it was really funny. And yeah, that is a good episode. That's a really, really great choice right there. It incorporated like the best elements of the show, rather. So let's see. Shark, what would your pick be?
For me, it has to be the episode where information superhighway. in which Timmy's parents send a love letter to Trixie, and Timmy wishes to enter the internet to recover it. And I really like it because not only is like the description of the internet really creative, one of the most creative versions of it, but all the jokes in the episode lands. Like, this episode is just full of many funny jokes. We have like a running gag with, "Oh, Timmy, I'm respecting your privacy by knocking, but I asserted my authority as your partner by coming in anyways." We also have like when Cosmo and Wanda break the computer, they get his dad to fix it, and it's just this like cardboard thing with literally the motor is a hamster. "Run, Eddie, run!" When he reaches finally Trixie's computer, but she's in a chat with her friend, and it's like, I need to send her a message, but I have to make it convincing. And "Do you like Timmy Turner?" And Trixie sends it back, and the friend is like, "Yes, but she can't find out." So now I hate it, and Timmy's like, "Oh god, the crazy girl likes me." And the Gorilla Society, Timmy saying like, "Oh, I'm in a Chinese computer and very far away from home. Oh, good thing this Chinese restaurant is right beside the house." Just such a funny episode.
Yeah, that was a really fun episode too, because it's one of those things too, like you said, that every joke lands, and it's also interesting just to see how different the internet was depicted back then, because you don't even really get to see websites. It's more just about like generic computers in general. It definitely feels interesting, and it does have the great moment of Mr. Crocker in the dress. "You're not supposed to be on that kind of a website, but that's my teacher." Well, the dress does make him look pretty. That is another great choice right there. And yeah, Fairly Oddparents as a whole is a show that, while it definitely has more misses than hits, especially later on in the show, and even earlier on, not every episode is a winner. I dare say that Jimmy Neutron had a much better rate when it came to really good, funny episodes. That when Fairly Oddparents was good, it was really good and funny. It was one of those shows that when they were on fire, they knew exactly what they were doing. Now it is time for the patent-pending Dragoness Scale of the week, where, for once, we are not ranking a Dragoness, or a female dinosaur, or a Loch Ness monster, or pretty much anything else, really. So it's going to be the really unique one, because first time we're ranking a snake on this podcast. But with that being said, the criteria remains the same, so let's get to it. For Rhonda the Rattleconda, I really like the design, like the voice. Deborah Wilson does a great job. The characterization, what little we get, is nice. I do like the little moment that we actually kind of skipped in the episode. A little bit of jealousy or rivalry she has with Sherry the snake is really cute as well, and I kind of wish was fleshed out a little more. With that being said, I don't know if I could give her a perfect score, even though I do like the design, I love the voice. I just feel like, I don't know, she got maybe a tiny little bit of characteristics, or if she was foreshadowed just a little bit more would have worked. She really is a great character, and she's a great one to start off our snakes with, so I'm going to give her an 8 out of 10. And the reason for that being that I just wish she had maybe a little bit more screen time for the 11 minutes. And the fact that maybe she had just a little bit more characterization. But with that being said, for our first, but certainly not last female snake, this is going to be a really interesting one. So, 8 out of 10 it is. Let's see, Angron, what would you give her?
I'm also going to give her an 8 out of 10. Like you said, she doesn't do too much in this episode. Like, she does have her pretty interesting moment. She's a pretty threatening force, even as something constructed within the game. But yeah, there's not too much that she does outside of the shed battle with her own skin. And the fact that she ultimately just gets left in the dust by Hazel and her brother and the fairies. That being said, yeah, she definitely deserves that 8 out of 10. It can only go up from here, and for other snakes and other reptiles that we're going to cover in the future, she definitely is one of those things that I am looking forward to covering more of.
Let's see, Math, what would you give her?
I'm going with an 8 as well. Mine is for a slightly different reason. So I think that she actually does have enough that's done with her throughout the episode, considering it is 11 minutes, and she is in it for, I'd say, about half of the episode. So she's a good antagonist foil to the episode. What kind of kills it a little bit for me is more aesthetically speaking. This is a very personal thing. I've never been a big fan of the punk aesthetic like this, the British punk aesthetic, which is what she is really aping off of. And if you like it, it's good here. I don't, so I find it kind of meh, and that's what lowers it to an 8 for me.
I can understand why that wouldn't work, because I think what might have worked better if they gave her a bit more of a Western theme, like make her like an evil cowgirl or something like that, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I would have loved that. The problem is then you would have been ripping off Rango, and I'm pretty sure someone would have said something about that.
Well, it is Nickelodeon to Nickelodeon, so I don't know how much of a ripoff that is. So let's see. Shark, what would you give her?
Well, it's gonna be a train of 8s because I'm also going with an 8, which is pretty much a combination of what have been said. Like, I do like the design, I do like the idea, the punk stuff, but yeah, maybe for the setting it would have worked better as a bandit of the, a criminal of the Western world or all of that. Yeah, that's kind of the thing, like, she does show up for a while, but honestly, she's kind of a one-note character. Oh, my goal is to eat you, and that's pretty much what we see, other than the tiny challenge she has with her shed skin. Maybe she had more comedic moments, or maybe I don't know, maybe there's a joke with, oh, I also play piano or something like that. It will make her a bit more of character, but as it is, it's a great design, and she serves as a good obstacle for the episode, so yep, gonna go with an 8.
Wow. For once, we have another perfect train of rankings for the character. And yeah, for our first snake, that is definitely a pretty good one right there. And she certainly is not going to be the last snake. We have many, many, many more to do, including one and possibly a redo of an episode, but more on that later in the future. That's going to be it for this week. If you have any questions, or if you want to see a reboot of Chalk Zone get the same treatment that this got, you can feel free to email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us at Twitter at twitter.com/Fiery Discourse. Be sure to subscribe to the Fiery Discourse YouTube channel and subscribe to the playlist. Like and hit the bell icon. Leave a comment. Any all comments are appreciated. Next week, we are going to be talking about the 1953 movie, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. We're finally getting to some Ray Bradbury and Ray Harryhausen on this podcast, and spoiler, it won't be the last time that we talk about Harryhausen's work on the podcast. Far from it. It's going to be really so much fun, because great movie overall, and we've talked about some lesser B movies. Now we're going to be talking about a B movie that is actually a really, really classic for a lot of reasons. But that'll be it for this week. Until then, thank you all so much for listening, and take care.
Later,
Bye.
y'all.
Adios.
Oh.
See you all next week.